This is the Project Management Podcast. We bring project management to beginners and experts. Find us on the web at pm-podcast.com or send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com. Hello and welcome to this premium episode number 178. I am Cornelius Fichtner. This is the Project Management Podcast. Nice to have you with us. You are listening to a premium episode. This means, as always, that only you, our paying premium subscribers, get to hear it. Thank you very much for your financial support of the Project Management Podcast. Last week, we launched our Project Leadership series and we interviewed Rick Valurga, author of The Cure for the Common Project. In this initial interview, you got introduced to his 5 core themes that he presents in the book. As a refresher, they are expectation management, ownership, winning, narrative, and eliciting the best. In today's interview, we want to go ahead and put one of those leadership principles into action. Rick and I decided to focus on expectation management to show you how a project leader approaches this important task in his or her daily dealings. Don't forget that we continue to give away Rick's book and that we will draw a winner towards the end of April 2011. Because you are a premium subscriber, you are automatically entered into the drawing for one of these 2 copies. If you want to double your chances, then please go to facebook.com/pmpodcast, look for the giveaway announcement and simply leave a comment. And now, it's not what you expect. It's what they expect. Enjoy the interview.
The Project Management Podcast's feature interview. Today with Rick Valurga, author of the book The Cure for the Common Project.
Hello, Rick, and thank you very much for coming back onto the podcast.
Thanks, Cornelius. It's great to be back with you.
In this interview, we want to delve slightly deeper into your book, The Cure for the Common Project. We already learned about your 5 core themes, and going backwards, they are eliciting the best, narrative, winning, ownership, and in this interview, we want to talk about the first one a little bit more in detail. Expectation management. Why are we focusing on expectation management today?
Well, I like to call expectation management the compass of project management. Why? Because it's where we can always look when we're lost. And I'm not the only one who thinks it's important. As I mentioned in the previous podcast, when I deliver presentations about my book to other project managers, I end with a 10-minute exercise for people to discuss the biggest challenge that they face as a leader today and which of the 5 core themes could best address it. Expectation management is usually what they choose as their most frequently identified theme.
Oh, so people actually feel that this is almost the most important one that we have to address as project leaders. Is that it?
Yes, it's not surprising to see half the room raise their hands when I ask how many people identified expectation management as a thing they need to focus on the most.
Wow. Let's compare this to the PMBOK guide, because in the PMBOK guide, when we open it up, we find that it has 42 processes in there. And one of these processes is called Manage Stakeholder Expectations. How closely related is your core theme to this particular process here from the PMBOK guide?
That's a great question, Cornelius. When I'm talking about this core theme of project leadership, I'm talking about adopting expectation management as a personal daily mantra. What am I doing to manage expectations today? It drives you to make better plans, generate more thorough financial models, perform more due diligence, seek more buy-in, turn over more rocks, work harder to align interests, and have the courage to deliver bad news objectively and constructively. In this manner, expectation management crosses the main knowledge areas of the PMBOK, like schedule management, scope management, cost management, risk management, and the like. In fact, if we drew all these PMBOK knowledge areas on a sheet of paper, you'd see expectation management run perpendicular to all of them.
Okay, so let's look at expectation management in detail then here, your type of expectation management. First of all, whose expectations are we talking about?
Well, there are three major constituencies for our projects: the customers, the sponsor, and the team members. We need to make sure that we are managing the expectations of each of these groups. If we are not being a responsible steward for any one of these groups, then we are undermining our project in some way. For example, if the project plan gambles on heavy team overtime, then the team has a right to know. Or when we learn that a product will fall flat in the marketplace, the sponsor has a right to redeploy the resources.
Okay, and who is actually managing these expectations? I mean, is it just the project leader?
Great question. The project leader starts by leading the process of expectation management, making realistic, responsible commitments, and then never undermining the importance of a commitment. And team members eventually become influenced to do the same.
Mm-hmm. And among the three constituents that you mentioned, out of which all three have their own expectations, who is the most important for me as a project leader?
Definitely the customer. A negative shock to a customer is the worst possible outcome. It has a nonlinear impact. How do we financially model the impact of a broken promise in the marketplace? I'm not saying that we need to do everything for our customers. We need to follow our own optimal strategies for ROI. And sometimes that means politely declining a customer opportunity. But for those expectations that we do set with customers, we must uphold them.
Mm-hmm. And how does accountability flow into all of this?
It's absolutely integral. Through the process of expectation management, the project leader helps the team understand that it's critical to make and stick to responsible commitments. Now, that commitment is the starting point for buy-in. One great way to sustain this buy-in is to avoid micromanagement. So the project leader extends trust and empowerment to the team, encouraging decision-making at the lowest level possible, but then ensures that progress is judiciously tracked for all to see. And this cycle of buy-in, empowerment, and transparent reporting is the essence of accountability.
Okay, to me, that seems almost like it is demanding new skills from the project manager / project leader. So, what skills then do I need in order to be a project leader, in order to, manage the expectations well?
Well, for expectation management, I think it boils down to discipline and hard work, courage, tact, and openness. Here's why. The discipline and hard work are required to ingrain expectation management as a regular habit. It's somewhat contrary to human nature, since most PMs don't want to rock the boat and don't want to deliver bad news. Courage is required because expectation management matters the most only when you are under duress. Tact is required because under duress, we risk trampling on others' emotions, and the consequences can be severe. And openness is required because in the process of expectation management, we are very likely to run into some very strong opinions. We need to have the capacity to listen to these opinions and turn good, constructive ideas into changes that matter.
Okay, all of that sounds extremely touchy-feely, and that takes us into the realm of soft skills here, right? So let's take a right-hand turn here, and let's move out of the soft skills quickly and see what hard tools that you can recommend that could help us in this area.
Well, there's the obvious ones for the obvious reasons. Project planning, the triple constraint, and risk management. PMPs know these tools well. But I'd also like to point out an unlikely hero here, the financial model. I have found this to be an exceptional tool for analyzing, evaluating, and communicating trade-offs while in stressful situations.
Okay, you got to go a bit deeper into this now here because this sounds interesting. What exactly do you mean by the financial model?
Well, when I'm talking about the financial model, I'm talking about the entire view of your project. It takes into account the financial impact of completing the entire scope of work, so the entire budget side of the project. It takes into account the entire revenue side of the project and what customers will pay for the eventual outcome of the product. And then it also takes into account the future sales, the future cost of the product if it's going to be sold on a recurring basis. And so, because the financial model examines all of these variables comprehensively, it gives us the ability to analyze trade-offs among them.
Okay. Talking about trade-offs, we often have competing expectations among the three constituents that you mentioned. Like, the end user, the customer wants a Rolls Royce. However, the sponsor wants us to cut corners on all four edges that we have. The marketing team, they need us to deliver the results 2 months earlier for the trade show, but the team doesn't want to work overtime, etc., etc., etc. You can go on for hours on these. How does a project leader handle such a situation?
Well, this is a great example of an inherently unstable situation. Literally a train wreck waiting to happen. The number one takeaway is that in order to manage expectations, we as project managers need to drive this situation to a documented decision that includes a realistic outcome. Now, we can use the triple constraint to frame multiple scenarios that will help us ferret out the exact nature of the competitiveness equation. Scenario 1 prioritizes budget. Scenario 2 prioritizes schedule. Scenario 3 prioritizes features. And then application of the financial model changes this exercise from a subjective one to an objective one by generating common metrics like net present value for us to compare these scenarios. And we also need to acknowledge that at some point, management escalation may be required. The key is to not give up until you have a documented, well-publicized decision that includes a realistic outcome.
What do you think is the most difficult facet of expectation management? And while we're talking about that, what approach do you recommend that our listeners can then use, in order to overcome that difficulty?
Well, the most difficult facet is turning it into a habit, making it part of daily life without going in the polar opposite direction, which is to sandbag everything. As a PM, you are called upon to make commitments, and all of the commitments you make will require the acceptance of risk. And great PMs differentiate themselves by delivering upon more challenging commitments more often. Okay. So, what can we do? Well, we start simple. Think about expectation management every day. If you send me your email address, I can send you a slide with the 5 core themes that you can put up on your wall at work as a continual reminder.
All right. Finally here, my question to you is, let's help our listeners to turn this into actions. Because many of them, they probably want to apply what they have learned today. And, to me, leadership starts inside of yourself. This is not something that you can just go to your computer and you start up the leadership component of whatever tool that you have. So what are some of the internal changes that we need to make that will boost our credibility, conviction, and ability to lead others in these tough situations that we have to make in expectations management?
Well, that's a great point, Cornelius, that leadership starts inside yourself. And the 5 core themes are all about the internal personal changes that we can make, changes that help us harness our own personal integrity and weave it into the everyday fabric of the project environment. So, your question, credibility, conviction, and ability to lead others in tough situations. Well, I like to say that credibility is a currency, and that broad credibility earned over time is our greatest asset. Expectation management is the key to earning that asset. Conviction is gained through the core theme of ownership, most notably when we shed our victim behaviors and choose not to allow ourselves the escape of excuses. And the best way to lead others in tough situations is twofold. First, we need to have a pre-existing foundation of integrity built into our projects so that people know that it's not about our ambition or our agendas. It's all about the good of the project. And second, we need to help remove fear and create a safe environment, as we talked about with the core theme of winning.
Let me remind everybody that the book is called The Cure for the Common Project. 5 core themes that transform project managers into leaders. It is written by Rick Vlerga and it's 184 pages thick and published by BookSurge. Rick, thank you so much for coming onto the program today and meeting my expectations.
Thanks very much, Cornelius. I really enjoyed the opportunity.
And that was Rick Vlerga and his recommendations on good expectation management for all you project leaders out there. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. As always, you can find us on the web at pm-podcast.com. And if you are a project manager who wants to become a PMP, then the easiest way to do so is with our sister podcast, the Project Management Prepcast, and study for the exam by watching over 38 hours of video training from pmprepcast.com. Please send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com, and when you write, please do tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. A user is somebody who rejects the system just because it's what he had originally asked for. Until next time. Rick, I'd like to come back to the comparison of your theme to the PMBOK guide, because as we heard in the interview, the PMBOK guide, it's just one of those 42 processes, yet you decided to elevate this as into a whole theme of your book. Why did you do that? Why has management of expectations become, such a big part of it?
Well, if expectation management is just one of 42 processes, then it's not getting the billing it deserves. Now, it may sound easy or obvious at first, but it's actually profoundly difficult to get it right over the entire course of a project. Let's look outside the world of projects to the world of a CFO at a publicly traded company. How many CFOs do you think would consider it easy to manage the expectations of their shareholders? If they're too optimistic, the market punishes them. If they're too pessimistic, the market punishes them. It's actually a very difficult tightrope to walk.